An old hag making a 5-figure salary? Lana's words prompted Hector to also chime in, sounding delighted. Does that mean you've got a 6-figure savings? My eldest son and his wife, peering over my PC screen, exaggeratedly rejoiced at what they saw. I felt uneasy about their attitude. Fortunately, what they saw was just a number without a name attached, so I quickly fibbed. I earned $300, and my savings are just $3,000. Upon hearing this, the expressions of my eldest son and his wife dropped, and they turned to look at me. It seems they're still somewhat in doubt. I kept up the charade desperately. The stuff you saw earlier, that's just an example of a successful person. Amazing, isn't it? My words, clumsily trying to cover up, clearly disappointed my eldest son and his wife. The next day, they said something shocking. Mom, can you leave this house? We don't want an old hag leeching off us here. Their words made me resolve to cut ties with my eldest son and his wife. I pretended to be downtrodden. Lana looked over with a mean smirk. Just you wait, I thought to myself as I packed. I had already decided where to go. Pretending to be upset to the very end, I gathered my bare essentials. Thank you for everything. With a sigh to my eldest son and his wife, who didn't even bother to see me off, I left my home. My name is Rachel Rattledge. Just turned 75 last month. I worked in the editing business until retirement age, living modestly on my pension and retirement fund since. My husband passed away 5 years ago. He was involved in a rear-end collision on the highway. The memory still pains me, bringing tears on many days, but recently I've started to look forward a bit more. We had 2 children. My eldest daughter, now 35, is married and lives with her husband's family. The in-laws are kind, and she has a good life with her grandchildren. My second child, Hector, my eldest son, was born when I was 45. We considered having only one child since I was already 40 when my daughter was born, but my husband and I both had incomes and wanted more than one child, being only children ourselves. So Hector was conceived after fertility treatments. Hector married a year before my husband passed away. His wife, Lana, is a bit vain, but takes initiative in family events. Their daughter, Mona, born just before my husband's death, is now 5. They moved into my house 6 months ago at Lana's insistence, and I, living alone, happily agreed. I thought living out my days with my grandchild would be a joy. I thought so, but reality wasn't so sweet. After Hector's family moved in, the house became lively, which I loved, but utility bills and food expenses more than doubled. Yet there was no talk of them contributing to living expenses for my eldest son and his wife. Moreover, housework, which was supposed to be shared, was mostly ignored by Lana. Occasionally she cooked, but often it was for taking to friends' houses, using ingredients I had bought. For the first 2 months, the joy of living with Mona outweighed my concerns. But the strain of daily chores and playing with Mona started to weigh on me, an elderly woman. More importantly, my retirement funds were dwindling due to the family's expenses. Reluctantly, I decided it was important to speak honestly and approached my eldest son and his wife. Hey, you've been living here for a half a year now. I hate to ask, but can you contribute a bit to the living expenses? Food and utility bills have more than doubled. As I said this, my eldest son and his wife looked at each other and then burst into laughter. Confused, I just tilted my head. Then, Lana, laughing and holding her stomach, replied, Rachel, you're always joking. Asking for living expenses while we're graciously living with you? What kind of wicked mother-in-law are you? Nobody does that these days. No, I'm not joking. As I denied Lana's words, the expressions vanished from the faces of my eldest son and his wife. Then, with a blank expression, Hector quietly said to me, "Mom, are you trying to mooch off your son?" I was so shocked that I couldn't immediately respond. I wasn't mooching. I was just asking for a little help with living expenses. Besides, they both have dual incomes. Lana works part-time, but Hector is a full-time employee at a large corporation. They can't be short of money, yet they acted as if I was the villain for asking. "Rachel, I can't believe it. We're working hard for Mona's sake, and you're asking for our money?" "I never thought you'd be such a money-grubbing mother." Their harsh words almost brought me to tears, but I couldn't back down now. I persisted and finally got them to agree to contribute $500 a month. It's nowhere near enough to cover the increased expenses, but I decided to be grateful for anything. Since then, Lana has repeatedly called me wicked. Hector doesn't stop her and even joins in. The only consolation is that they don't do it in front of Mona. Perhaps because I've often looked after her, Mona is very attached to me. Even my eldest son and his wife can't speak ill of me in front of their dear daughter. Lana's part-time job, initially only in the mornings, gradually became full day, and now she's out all day. The job is child-friendly, so when I absolutely can't watch Mona, Lana reluctantly takes her along. Mona attends a nearby prestigious preschool, famous for its enriching experiences, but also for its substantial monthly fees. Shockingly, I was the one who ended up paying those fees. It started when Lana tearfully told me she couldn't afford the high cost 1 month. What was supposed to be a one-time thing became a regular expectation. So my savings dwindled. Then I received an offer from my former company to work as a web writer. They wanted me to write a column from an editor's perspective, offering a stipend plus incentives. It was a great opportunity, and I could work from home, allowing me to manage Mona's pickups and household chores. I decided to give it a try, and it turned out to be a huge success. My columns became increasingly popular, leading to various job offers and higher rates per project. After half a year, I was earning more than an average full-time salary. Busy as I was, writing again and receiving appreciation for my work filled me with joy, and I immersed myself in it. However, I kept my job a secret from my eldest son and his wife. Sometimes when deadlines loomed and housework fell behind, they made snide remarks, but they never questioned why, which worked in my favor. A year into web writing, my monthly income exceeded 5 figures. When I hit a record $18,400 one month, my face broke into a smile in front of my computer screen. If things continued like this, my future options would certainly expand. While I was pondering this alone, a voice came from behind me. "Hey, Rachel, what's that? You working from home?" I gasped and turned around. There stood Lana. As soon as she saw my screen, her face lit up and she called Hector over. When Hector arrived, she pointed at my screen and exclaimed excitedly, "An old hag making a 5-figure salary?" Lana's words prompted Hector to also chime in, sounding delighted. "Does that mean you've got a 6-figure savings?" My eldest son and his wife, peering over my PC screen, exaggeratedly rejoiced at what they saw. I felt uneasy about their attitude. Fortunately, what they saw was just a number without a name attached, so I quickly fibbed. I earned $300, and my savings are just $3,000. Upon hearing this, the expressions of my eldest son and his wife dropped, and they turned to look at me. It seems they're still somewhat in doubt. I kept up the charade desperately. "The stuff you saw earlier? That's just an example of a successful person. Amazing, isn't it?" My words, clumsily trying to cover up, clearly disappointed my eldest son and his wife. The next day, they said something shocking. "Mom, can you leave this house?" "We don't want an old hag leeching off us here." Their words made me resolve to cut ties with my eldest son and his wife. As I pretended to be downtrodden, Lana looked over with a mean smirk. "Just you wait," I thought to myself as I packed. I had already decided where to go. Pretending to be upset to the very end, I gathered my bare essentials. Thank you for everything. With a sigh to my eldest son and his wife, who didn't even bother to see me off, I left my home. I immediately moved to a nearby hotel. The next day, I visited my childhood home. My cousin was living there with her daughter and granddaughter, having become a single mother. I had asked my cousin to look after the house, which once belonged to my parents, as a place for her and her daughter to live. My cousin's family warmly welcomed me. I decided to plan my next steps there. When all my plans were in place, my eldest son and his wife came to visit. Apparently, they found me by following a Christmas card in Hector's memory. Despite having treated me so poorly, Lana was suddenly acting submissive upon seeing me. Rachel, how are you? We were worried when you left so suddenly. Oh, but you were the ones who told me to leave, weren't you? They probably didn't expect to be confronted in front of Mona. Lana's smile twitched as if struggling to stay in place. I stood in the entrance, blocking them from entering the house. At first, Lana and Hector were taken aback, but soon they became assertive. Mom, you've cooled off by now, right? We're not mad. Come back. Yeah, Rachel, we're family, aren't we? I couldn't help but laugh at my eldest son and his wife's insincerity. They watched me with strained smiles as I laughed. After I had my fill of laughter, I replied, Hector, I'm not interested in whether you're angry or not. I've decided to live here now. I won't be returning there anymore. What, Mom? That's harsh. We can't make it without you. Mona is missing you too. Stop being stubborn and come back. Hector's words made me imagine the current state of my home. Knowing Lana, she's probably not doing any cleaning. The house must be in disarray, unfit for inviting anyone over. It's an old house, so there must be bugs too. And Lana's cooking is terrible. In other words, their request for me to return probably means, come back and do the housework. I refuse. I'm going to enjoy my retirement. What? How dare you? Lana's indignant response only made me laugh. I pointed to her brand new designer bag. You spend all your money on flashy things like that. No wonder you can't afford living expenses. Without me, you must be struggling to afford such luxury, right? My words hit the mark, and the eldest son and his wife trembled, unable to retort. But they still didn't seem to be giving up. Reluctantly, I pulled out 2 photos I had brought from the room. Seeing them, my eldest son and his wife turned pale. What? Why does Rachel have these? They were evidence of their infidelities, discovered during my investigation. Lana was arm in arm with an unknown man entering his house, and Hector was entering a hotel with a young woman. Both photos clearly showed their companions' faces. You? You were cheating? And with my colleague? You were cheating too. That girl, isn't she from my workplace? Turns out both of them were having affairs with someone from their respective workplaces. When I discovered this during the investigation, it gave me a headache. It was as if they were asking to be caught. I held the photos between my fingers, shaking them slightly as I laughed. Affairs with colleagues, how impressive. Or rather, being so engrossed with someone else when you're married is just low. My words made the eldest son and his wife shudder. They seemed to be aware that they had done something wrong. I handed them the photos as a parting gift. Their expressions were a mix of emotions. Then I decided to give them another surprise. Actually, I've invited some people over today. Some people? As Hector tilted his head in confusion, I exaggeratedly called out over the fence. Burke? Agnes, please come over. Dad? Mom? Lana's shocked voice echoed in front of the house. I barely held back my laughter as I guided Lana's parents to stand beside me. Lana's parents looked stiff, their faces beyond pale. I've explained the whole situation to Lana's parents. Lana, what have you done?
disrespecting your husband's mother, and even driving her out of her own house, and an affair, too. Shame on you."
Lana recoiled at her father Burke's furious outburst. I only let Mona enter the house. I didn't want to expose her to any more adult conflicts. "It's not like that, Dad. She said she would give us the house."
"What do you mean? It's not like that. You don't refer to your mother-in-law as this person in normal circumstances."
Beside the enraged Burke, Lana's mother Agnes stood with an expressionless face. She must be extremely upset. Despite her expressionless face, Agnes's clenched fists were shaking with tension. Lana, oblivious to her mother's state, sought help. "Mom, you understand, right? I haven't done anything wrong. It's all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? Indeed, we misunderstood you. We knew we spoiled our only daughter. But we thought we had instilled enough education in you not to be an embarrassment in public. But it seems we were mistaken. A child who can cause trouble for others without remorse." Agnes said this and glared sharply at Lana. Lana let out a small scream and stepped back. Then Agnes raised her voice. "I'll correct your rotten attitudes, both of you. You're moving in with us. Don't think it'll be easy."
"Huh?"
Hector shrieked at Agnes's ferocity, and for good reason. Agnes is actually a judo teacher, so living with her meant mandatory participation in judo practice. Lana had once said she left home right after getting a job because she disliked it. Caught off guard by these developments, the eldest son and his wife stood dumbfounded. Then I decided to reveal the truth. "By the way, the income you saw on my screen before kicking me out, that's actually mine." "What?" Lana looked at me, more shocked than ever. I almost laughed, but managed to hold it back. Hector looked doubtful, then half smiled.
"Mom, are you just being a sore loser now? You said you had no income, right? And there wasn't much left in the bank book either."
I didn't know when they had seen my bank book, but Hector said this with a smug look. I sighed exaggeratedly and gave them my response. "Obviously, I wouldn't keep a large sum where you can find it. It's obvious you'd try to take it."
"What? Then where is it?"
Hector raised his voice, and I showed him my mobile phone screen. It displayed my online banking account. "See my online bank? It says deposit here. My income is now over 5 times what Hector makes." Hector was speechless. But Lana, who had been stunned, quickly thought of something and began apologizing to me with a sly smile. "Rachel, I'm sorry for everything. I realize now that we've been able to live thanks to you. So why don't we go back to that house and live as a family?" Hector, regaining his senses, joined in the apology. But I couldn't accept such an insincere, money-driven apology. I was about to point this out when a voice came from behind me. "Dad, Mom, please don't bully Grandma anymore." I turned to see Mona, her face red and tears in her eyes, standing behind me. She was bravely expressing her anger in her small body, and my eldest son and his wife were shocked, but quickly began to argue. "That's not it, Mona. We're just asking Grandma to help us because she has a lot of money. For your sake."
"Yeah, Mona. Didn't you say you wanted a piano? Grandma's going to buy you a big one."
I sighed at my eldest son and his wife's selfish reasoning. They thought they had fooled Mona, but it clearly hadn't worked. "I don't want a piano," Mona screamed, her voice breaking into sobs. "Dad and Mom, you always received kindness from Grandma, but all you do is badmouth her. My teacher said that people who constantly speak ill of others go to hell. Do you want to go to hell, Dad and Mom? I don't. I want all the people I love to go to heaven." Lana broke down crying at Mona's words, and Hector awkwardly turned his face away. I hugged Mona and reassured her. "It's okay, Mona. When Dad and Mom live with their grandparents, they'll become good people and go to heaven." Agnes nodded at my words. Mona, smiling broadly at this, left the entrance, took her parents' hands, and went back to Lana's parents' house. Later on, Lana's family moved into her parents' house. Both were being trained daily at the practice ground, correcting their lifestyle habits and fickle hearts. Hector, who was not fond of physical exercise, was getting thoroughly trained, often coming home with bruises. Mona, who had always wanted to learn judo, seemed to be enjoying it every day. On the day of their move, Agnes sold all the luxury bags and other items, using the money for living expenses, and planned to split any further costs equally. The living expenses I had been paying were being deducted from the money they owed and paid into Lana's parents' household fund each month. I didn't need the money, so I decided to save it all for Mona's use. After that, I sold my house and moved back to my childhood home. My cousin and her daughter and granddaughter welcomed me warmly, and I'm enjoying a comfortable life. I also hired my cousin's daughter as a housekeeper, paying her a salary to take care of everything at home, so she could spend more time with her child. Mona now visits my house about twice a month. We see each other less frequently than when we lived together, but she's still my dear beloved only grandchild. She has a judo competition coming up and asked me to come watch, which I plan to do. Luckily, my work can be done anywhere as long as I have my PC. Right now, Mona and I are also planning to go on a long vacation together. I want to fully enjoy and make the most of the things I love and the life ahead of me.
So, you're really coming to our wedding, huh? I'll be embarrassed to introduce you as my sister-in-law to our relatives. My brother's fiancée, Lily, remarked. I'm Katie, a 37-year-old single woman who dropped out of school. I'm not ashamed of my dropout status or my singleton life at this age. In fact, I'm proud to say it's all for living happily with my precious family. My family has always been poor and fatherless since I was born. For reasons unknown, my mother bore me and my younger brother, Georgie, 2 years my junior while still unmarried. She worked relentlessly, but with 2 children to feed, we were always barely making ends meet. Sometimes a relative would come over to our home and try to give money to my mother, but she would always decline, saying, "Please, let us rely on you only when we're truly desperate. We're okay for now." When I asked my mother why she refused to accept the money, she explained, "If I just take his money, his wife might feel upset." But honestly, I wished she had taken the money. Georgie was a brilliant kid. He even topped his grade in elementary school. As an overly proud older sister, I was excited for him, thinking he was destined to become a successful person in the future. In fact, his school teacher recommended him for admission to a prestigious school, but we didn't have the money for that. He ended up going to a not-so-great school, and I felt terrible for him. So I chose to drop out of school and started working without hesitation. Well, the truth is, I hated studying, so I seized the opportunity to start working. Of course, most of the jobs available for a dropout didn't pay well, and I ended up working in a small office. But when the owner of the office decided to retire and close the business, he recommended me to a reputable company he had dealings with, and I was able to get a decent paying job there. I worked hard and even received a manager title at the age of 35, earning a salary comparable to a college graduate of the same age. However, my brother's fiancée, Lily, doesn't seem to approve of me being a dropout, especially because my brother Georgie, now a graduate of a prestigious university, is thriving as a salesman at a top-tier company called ABC Trading. Perhaps it's my single eyelid, or my not-so-friendly eyes, but from the first time she met me, Lily seemed to think of me as some kind of failed dropout who couldn't make it to college. I was shocked when Georgie told me that Lily had asked him, "Hey, is your sister, kind of a problem person?" Lily, the daughter of a director at the ABC Trading, where Georgie works, is quite a beauty, but it's hard to say she's a good person. She came to our house once and was so taken aback by our rundown apartment that she refused to come in. She complained, "Even though I dressed up so nicely, I'm getting dirty." She also felt embarrassed that her boyfriend, with whom she was in a relationship, was commuting from such a place. Borrowing the power of her father, who was the head of the department, she forcefully moved Georgie into a family housing, where he should not have been able to move in. She seemed to have insisted on a ridiculous excuse that we're going to live there once we're married. There was a catch to this. Outsiders were prohibited from entering the company housing, and even close relatives had to apply each time they visited. Oh, I guess I can't visit often. I wanted to peek at your happy newlywed wife, I joked, to which Lily's mother coldly replied, that's precisely why we decided to have them live in a family house. Moreover, she was rude to Mother. On the day she came to our house, Lily whispered in a voice that Georgie couldn't hear, because your mother-in-law was poor, Georgie will have to keep paying back his student loans, even after marriage. It's natural for parents to pay for tuition, right? And glared at Mother. The truth was that Mother and I had been saving for Georgie's college fund, but he insisted on paying it himself. In this way, Lily and Lily's mother have quite difficult personalities, but Georgie is completely aware of this, due to their feline pretensions, which are typical of celebrities. Actually, I want my mom to move into the company house too, but Lily says the husband's siblings are not eligible to move in, so my sister-in-law will be alone. That's pitiful. When I told her that I graduated from college with a scholarship, Lily's mom said, you want to relieve your mom as soon as possible, right? You're such a thoughtful and wonderful person. He happily talked about how kind Lily and her family were. Well, if the couple gets along well, there's no need for us to badmouth them, so we remained silent. But that was a mistake. Lily and her family started to exclude me and Mother, especially me. Sister-in-law, do you plan to attend our wedding? With the wedding with Georgie just half a month away, Lily suddenly contacted me. Of course, he's my only brother. But the venue is quite luxurious, and we're expecting about 150 guests. It seems that they invited even the president and the managing director of ABC Corporation, and the higher-ups of their clients, given the marriage between the daughter of the head of the department and the promising Georgie. When I thought they might not have enough seats, she said, I think all the guests will feel uncomfortable if there's one poor-looking sister-in-law. What? Poor-looking? I plan to wear a proper formal outfit for the wedding. Your proper is probably a suit from a catalog that costs about 10,000 yen, right? It's embarrassing to be surrounded by people wearing high-end brand clothes. Lily had judged me to be a bottom-tier person. To be frank, I don't want you to come to our wedding. Fed up with her implication that poor people should not come, I asked Lily a question. What about my mother then? Mother doesn't have any high-brand clothes either. I know that, but I can't not invite Georgie, who is a promising member of the company, and I don't want to be embarrassed by the shabby appearance of me or my relatives. So we'll prepare Mother's clothes. I was incredibly upset by the way Lily spoke, but it's obviously better to dress appropriately if people from top-notch companies are attending. I desperately tried to interpret it as her being considerate, so that Mother wouldn't be embarrassed at Georgie's big event, but I was taken aback by her next words. Of course, you will have to buy that dress. It's an Oscar de la Renta evening dress. So please prepare about $10,000 in total. Wait, I can't afford such an amount. If you can't pay, you will have to. Or do you plan to stand next to my parents in a cheap dress? I was flabbergasted and asked what Georgie thought. I haven't told Georgie yet. Of course, he thinks you and Mother will attend. But it will tarnish his future if his mother is unmarried and his sister is a dropout. No, I think nowadays, having a family of single mothers or dropouts doesn't affect a person's career. I didn't want to lose to Lily's prejudice, so I yelled, Anyway, it's my only brother's wedding, so both Mother and I will attend the wedding. We'll prepare the clothes, so we won't pay for it. If you really can't stand it, just don't invite us. Then I told Mother everything and asked for her advice. Mother looked downcast for a while, but eventually looked up and said cheerfully, "Don't worry, Katie. I promise you I will make Georgie happy. Just leave it to me." She then started to make a phone call and eventually revealed something astounding. On the wedding day, a solemn ceremony was held in the chapel first. I had been worried about whether or not I should tell Georgie about what Lily had said, but since I had left everything to Mother, I decided to remain silent. However, Georgie's expression seemed stiff. Was it just nerves, or had Mother told him something? After the ceremony, I was taken aback when I looked at the seating chart at the reception venue. Mother's name was the only one written in the family section, and I couldn't find my seat anywhere. Wait, there's no seat for me. Even though I said I would be attending, they were really trying to exclude me from the reception. Just then, Lily's parents showed up, giving me a disdainful look. "I can't believe you didn't understand when Lily told you not to come to the reception. We let you attend the wedding ceremony because we had no choice, but we can't stand having you spread your poverty around the reception. Go home, dropout sister." Ah, like mother, like daughter. Fine, I'll go home then. As I turned my back on Lily's parents, who were smirking, there was the CEO of Nikomimi Corporation, a listed company and business partner of Lily's father, standing with Georgie. "Mr. Ashcroft, thank you so much for coming!" "Katie, you're in the way!" "Sorry about that, Mr. Ashcroft. We were just getting rid of an unwanted guest." Then Mr. Ashcroft spoke. "If you insist on kicking Katie out, I, as her father, will also abstain from the reception." "Huh? Father?" What do you mean?" They both stared blankly, unable to believe what Mr. Ashcroft had said. Seeing this, Mr. Ashcroft repeated himself. "As I said, Katie is my daughter." As it turns out, Mr. Ashcroft and Mother were in a relationship in their 20s. Mr. Ashcroft was an executive and the future CEO at the time, while Mother had lost her parents in an accident and was alone. Their relationship wasn't blessed from the start. Furthermore, when Mother got pregnant with me, Nikomimi Corporation, Mr. Ashcroft's father's company, was on the verge of bankruptcy. Everyone opposed their marriage, saying it would do nothing to help rebuild the company. So Mother proposed to put their marriage on hold until the company was back on its feet. She became a single mother, raising me with the love she had for Mr. Ashcroft, despite the societal stigma. But the company's situation had not improved significantly when Mother got pregnant with Georgie. When the daughter of the CEO of a certain company, who had offered help, proposed marriage to Mr. Ashcroft, Mother decided to step back, saying, "I'll raise our 2 kids properly. You don't have to acknowledge them. Just please be happy with that woman and revive your company." After marrying the CEO's daughter, Mr. Ashcroft not only revived his company, but also grew it to the point where it became a listed company. However, we were not blessed with children, and divorced a year ago due to my wife's infidelity. Afterward, I proposed to reunite with Mother. A few days before Georgie's wedding, I met with Ashcroft, the company president, and my father. "Oh, I've seen this person before." Yes, he was the uncle who had visited our apartment a few times during my childhood, trying to give my mother some money. He turned out to be President Ashcroft. When I involuntarily stared at him, he smiled at me and said, "You've really gone through a lot. I've heard from your mother about the wedding this time." He shared his thoughts with me. President Ashcroft, who had become Georgie's business partner, knew well about Georgie's capabilities. "I would like him to take over Nikomimi Corporation, if possible, but if he fails to see the true nature of malicious people and disregards his mother and sister, I can't possibly entrust the company to him." So he was trying to investigate Georgie's character, using his wedding. The day before the wedding, President Ashcroft and Mother called Georgie and revealed the truth about their relationship, and that the Lilly family was trying to exclude Mother and me. Suddenly confronted with various revelations, Georgie, who had trusted Lily and her parents, approached the wedding with mixed feelings. That's why he looked stiff during the ceremony. However, when he saw that my name was not on the reception seating chart and observed Lily's parents trying to drive me out of the venue, he was convinced that what Mother and I had told him was true. Georgie brought Lily to the reception desk and declared, "Lily, Mr. and Mrs. Lily, I will annul this marriage. I have no intention of becoming a family with people who belittle and disregard my precious mother and sister." Wait, just hold on. You can't just say something like that all of a sudden. Yes, that's right. It's a misunderstanding. Besides, we've already held the ceremony. The two were in a fluster, but Lily, who hadn't grasped the situation, dropped the bomb. Huh? Georgie, are you choosing that low-life mother and daughter over me? You should know your place. Lily's parents, turning pale, tried to restrain her, but it was too late. When I explained the situation to Lily in detail, she collapsed on the spot and broke into tears. Furthermore, President Ashcroft said, "I guess we'll have to reconsider our business with your company," causing Lily's parents to burst into tears and apologize profusely. Everyone at the reception saw this, and the reception was ultimately canceled. Georgie cut ties with Lily completely without submitting the marriage registration. Afterward, I received a phone call from Lily, screaming in rage. "You're the reason I couldn't marry Georgie. I'll be billing you for compensation and the cancellation fee for the venue." But when I responded, "Oh really? Then I'll sue you for defamation," everyone at the reception heard the abusive language from you and your parents. She fell silent. Furthermore, I mentioned how her father had been removed from handling transactions with Nikomimi Corporation, demoted, and sidelined. "I should probably tell your father that I was threatened by Lily. Then, Nikomimi Corporation might completely stop dealing with ABC Trading. Won't your dad definitely lose his job?" Ignoring Lily, who was crying her eyes out, I hung up the phone on my end. Serves her right. Georgie, who had canceled his marriage to Lily, later transferred to Nikomimi Corporation and seems to be working hard to become his father's right-hand man. Mother and father are getting married soon. Mother is shy about having a wedding after turning 60, but she looks genuinely happy when we pick out her wedding dress together. I've been devoted to my work up until now, but I've started to think that maybe one day I'd like to wear Mother's wedding dress.
I have a mother who lives alone. Contemplating her circumstances, I approached my husband about the idea of living closer to my mother's house. However, he flatly retorted, "We are not moving near your mother's house. We should live with my parents instead." I was shocked. He just disregarded my feelings and tried to impose his will. With a deep sense of frustration, I decided to take matters into my own hands. My name is Isabella. I'm 30 years old. I live with my husband, Mark, and our 2-month-old son, Chris. Mark and I work at the same company. Although we are in different departments, we often work together on projects, and we share a number of acquaintances. We had a grand wedding celebration with our colleagues, and I was determined to make our married life a happy one. Initially, Mark and I lived in his apartment. However, as it was quite cramped, we decided to move. We wanted to have a child eventually, so we agreed to move into a larger apartment and consider buying a house later on. Casually browsing property listings on my smartphone, I started a conversation with Mark. "I don't want to quit my job even after we have a child," I said. Mark responded with a smile. "You love your work, Isabella. You should do what you like." "But it seems that the competition for daycare spots is pretty high. We have to think about that too if I'm planning to return to work." "Well, I guess you're right. We'll figure it out somehow," Mark nonchalantly replied, fiddling with his smartphone. I then decided to bring up an idea that I had been contemplating for a while. "You know, there's something I've been wanting to talk about," I began. "Oh? What is it?" he asked. "I'd like us to live closer to my mother's house, just in case something happens." "Why would we do that?" he inquired. "Well, you know my father passed away a few years ago, so my mother is living alone now. I want to be able to rush over if something happens." "Your mother seems fine. There's no need to worry about that now." "Well, yes, but I think it's better to have someone close by who can support us when we have a child. His response was noticeably reluctant. I tried to persuade him further. If it's just the two of us raising the child, it could be quite difficult, right? If my mom is nearby, I believe it'll ease your burden, I insisted.
Nah, I can't do that,
he countered. What? Why not?
because if we live near her mom, we'll have to see her often. That would be stressful.
I understand your concern, but I promise I'll try my best not to burden you.
When we have a child, you won't be able to work for a while, which means we'll be living on my income alone, right? So why should I have to deal with the extra stress?
Well, in response to my silence, he coldly stated,
We're not moving anywhere near your mother's house.
But, I protested,
After giving birth, you won't be able to contribute to the rent or the living expenses, right? Yet, you're the only one thinking about what's convenient for you. Don't you think that's a bit selfish?
hold on, what kind of logic is that? Sure, I wouldn't be able to work for a few months after giving birth, but does he really need to be so negative about it? Don't you think we should try harder to cooperate as a married couple? My husband's actions didn't make any sense, and I felt that if I continued to speak up, things would not progress in a positive way. We're newlyweds. I don't want to quarrel at this point. Fine. I got it. Leaving these words behind, I left the room. I couldn't bear this atmosphere any longer. Eventually, I gave up on living near my mother's home and decided to settle in an area close to both of our workplaces. After moving, work and our marital relationship were going fairly well, and we were leading relatively peaceful days. One day, I found out I was pregnant. My work was going well, so I felt a little guilty, but my child was my top priority. Taking handovers into account, I worked up until the last possible moment before my family leave. Since I had more free time after starting my family leave, I started visiting my mother more often. My husband, Mark, was coming home past midnight almost every day due to overtime work. If things continued this way, I would undoubtedly have to single-handedly raise our child after giving birth. As it would be my first child, everything was new to me and I felt a lot of anxiety. One day, I was visiting my mother at home and I blurted out my real feelings to her. Mom, I'm really looking forward to the baby coming, but I'm also very anxious. What's wrong, Isabella? That's not like you. You have Mark, don't you? Mark seems busy with work, and when I asked him to take care of our baby together after giving birth, he yelled at me, saying, How can I, a man, do that? As I explained, my voice trembled and my mother looked worried. I decided to express my feelings clearly to my mother. Hey, Mom, can I come back here for a while after the baby is born? Well, my mother tilted her head and thought for a moment. It's going to be tough at first, and it would be a bit of a hassle for me to commute to your place every day. I would be grateful if you could come over to our house, Isabella. Really? Can I stay? Of course. I'd be happy to spend time with my grandchild, and nothing would make me happier than being able to support my daughter. Thank you, Mom. I'll talk to Mark about it when I get home today. By revealing my anxiety to my mother, my heart felt significantly lighter. Right. I should talk to Mark properly. As a couple, we need to consider our child's future carefully. That night, I talked to Mark about the situation with my mother. However, his reaction was not what I was hoping for. What? Go back to your parents' house? You must be kidding. I'm serious. I leaned forward trying to convince my husband. I'm nervous because it's my first time, and I need to rest for a month after giving birth. I don't think I'll be able to do the housework. That's why I want to go back to my mother's house for a while. That's ridiculous. Who's gonna cook for me? Who's gonna do the laundry? Can't you manage on your own for just a little while, Mark? Huh? I'm out there working and now you want me to do housework too? You're a monster, Mark huffed. But in my confusion, Mark sighed heavily. I get it. I should help out, right? Huh? Help out? That's what I'm saying. I'll assist with childcare. I'll handle the chores and childcare for the first month after birth, okay? That way, there's no need for you to go back to your mother's home, right? Well, I guess so. Okay, then it's settled. I'll help out. This discussion's over. I understand. I wasn't entirely convinced, but the best thing for our family would be if we could work together to raise our child. I felt some apprehension, but I decided to trust Mark's words. I gave up the idea of going back to my mother's home and called my mom to explain the situation. I see. I was looking forward to your visit, so it's a bit disappointing. But it's a good thing, right? Mark said he'll help, hasn't he? That's true, but I thought it would be more reassuring with you, Mom, given your experience with childcare. Oh, there are plenty of couples who take on everything from the start without returning home. You should take advantage of Mark's support and try your best together. Okay, I understand. As I was about to hang up, my mother stopped me. Oh, and what's up? Always tell me when something happens. I'm always on your side, Isabella. Thanks, Mom. I'll try my best with Mark. I needed to work hard to keep from worrying my mom, and so I resolved to take on childcare with my husband. A few days later, our first son was born, and the tumultuous life of parenting began. As promised, Mark did help out, albeit in a limited way. His involvement amounted to doing some light shopping after work and taking out the garbage, tasks I had managed. However, Mark was stubbornly hands-off when it came to childcare. He had never changed a diaper or even made a bottle. I was tired from the unfamiliarity of childcare and had no energy to complain. This kind of parenting life continued for about 2 months. One evening, after putting our son to bed and returning to the living room, Mark arrived home. I'm home. Welcome home. I'll start making dinner, so just wait a bit. What? At least keep something ready to heat up. You're not good at managing things, are you? Well, what can I do? Our little Chris just fell asleep. It's been 2 months and you still can't get him to sleep properly? Never mind. I'll go take a bath first. Have dinner ready by the time I'm out. With that, Mark left the room. What was that about? Who does he think he is? Why does he demand perfection from me when he doesn't contribute to childcare at all? My irritation built, and I wanted to throw something, but I couldn't wake up Chris, who had just fallen asleep. I held back my anger. 30 minutes later, without saying a word, Mark started eating his dinner right after he got out of the bath. As I stared at him, shocked by his behavior. Oh yeah, I have something to talk about. Mark stopped me. Talk? What all of a sudden? I got a call from Dad today. Seems Mom fell and can't move her leg well. What? Your mother? According to my husband Mark, his mother had gone shopping with a neighborhood friend, had a dramatic fall, and was immediately taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Even after several hours, her leg isn't moving and the doctor diagnosed that she might need assistance going forward. I see. That's hard. Your father must be having a rough time. To be honest, I was more worried about my father-in-law than my mother-in-law. From the beginning, my mother-in-law did not like me. She was even cold to me at our marriage introduction. When I announced my pregnancy, "We don't need a girl, do we?" she was the type to say nonchalantly. The one who always scolded my mother-in-law and stood by me was my father-in-law. "Let me know if you need anything. I'll be there for you if you need me." Each time he met me, my father-in-law encouraged me like this. If my stay-at-home mother-in-law couldn't move, my father-in-law would be really struggling. While recalling the happenings at my in-laws' home, Mark dropped an unbelievable proposition. "Here's the thing. I had a great idea. Let's live together with my parents at my home." What? Don't you think it's a good plan? I'm worried about Mom, and you, Isabella, are not working now. If we live together, it will reduce Dad's burden, and he would be happy. Wait just a minute. You're joking, right? The reason I'm not working is to take care of our son, Chris. I can't suddenly decide to live with your parents. But it's been 2 months already. You must have some free time now. Right now, Mom is the priority. You should understand that. Is he serious? When I suggested living near my mom, he outright refused. But now it suits him just perfectly. Mark is not the type to visit his home frequently, so it was convenient so far. But living with my mother-in-law is out of the question. Knowing Mark, if we lived together, he would certainly side with his mother and be harsh on me. Unable to bear it any longer, I vented my frustrations.
Don't mess with me. You flat out denied when I wanted to live near my mother, but now it's okay when it's about you? What? What's that about? Your mother is fine, isn't she? But, unlike your house, my mom lives alone. What if something happens? You're not considering my anxieties, are you? Shut up. Listen here. You married me and became my wife. You should stop arguing and listen to what I say. At that moment, any residual affection I had for my husband vanished instantly. He doesn't consider my feelings, let alone seeing me as an equal. I cannot continue a marital relationship with him. Seeing my silence, Mark probably thought I had agreed and dropped this line. Anyway, it's decided that we're going to live together. We're moving as soon as possible, so get the stuff packed by tomorrow. I understand. You should have just obediently listened to me from the start. With that, Mark left for the bedroom without even clearing the dinner dishes. The next day, once Mark left for work, I packed the minimum necessary stuff and left the house. Of course, just for me and my son. When I returned to my mother's house with my son, my mother was initially shocked, but accepted our situation once I explained. As he returned home from work, my husband, Mark, called after realizing that my son and I were not there. Hey, where are you right now? At my mother's place, Mark. What? What the heck are you doing without my permission? Get back here right now. Well, our son's already asleep, and it's late. So no. Besides, I'm not planning on returning. What the? Mark yelled at me over the phone, something that was rare for me to oppose him. Listen here, if you don't come back right now, we're getting a divorce. You got it? A divorce? That's right. Didn't I tell you? I'm moving to my parents' house. If we divorce now, you'll be jobless. That's gonna be a problem for you, huh? I couldn't see his face, but I could tell from his tone of voice that he was smirking. To him, I responded coldly. I don't see that as a problem. What? I have no objections to the divorce. So please, send the divorce papers to the court. What are you saying? You're the one who's going to be in trouble if we get a divorce. Maybe he thought that if he provoked me with a blaming tone, I would listen to him. I was thoroughly disgusted by his naive thinking. If you want to move to your parents' house, go ahead. I won't. What? You think you could just do that? I don't need your permission. After all, we're getting a divorce. Why should I listen to what a stranger has to say? Who do you think you are talking like that? My patience with Mark, who still looked down on me, had reached its limit. Enough is enough. Who the hell do you think you are? How much more do you have to belittle someone before you're satisfied? I didn't get married to become your slave. Stop treating women like they're stupid. What's going on? Isabella, calm down. Calm down? I can't keep quiet after being belittled this much. If we can't support each other as a couple, then I don't need a man like you. Divorce? I'd be more than happy to. Live by yourself at your parents' house. Never involve me again. With that, I hung up the phone. Mark kept calling persistently, but I ignored all of them. Then he started to send me disturbingly affectionate texts. Isabella, I can't live without you. You don't have to live with my parents. Please come back. I understand. Let's live with your mother, just the three of us. 1 month later, his love messages abruptly stopped, and he unexpectedly agreed to the divorce. It was all thanks to my father-in-law. When Mark complained about the situation to him, he ended up getting scolded instead. Listen, Mark, you can't just impose the idea of living together on someone. But Dad! Oh, shut up. You need to learn more about the world, and that's why Isabella left you. It's pitiful. My stern father-in-law, after scolding my husband, instructed him to proceed with the divorce. My husband, unable to defy his father, grudgingly agreed to the divorce. I filed the divorce papers that were mailed to us, and we were officially no longer a couple. Afterwards, I received an apology from my father-in-law. Isabella, I'm truly sorry. My foolish son must have caused you trouble, hasn't he? It's all right, sir. It's all water under the bridge now. Live your life your way, Isabella, and thank you for everything. I can't express enough the gratitude to my father-in-law, who has shown nothing but respect until the end. The woman I am today is thanks to him. As for me, I'm in the thick of it, juggling work and motherhood as a single mom. With help from my mother,
I strive daily to become a better mother for my son. Being married and being a couple doesn't guarantee happiness. I don't need a husband to be happy. Just having my beloved son and mother by my side is more than enough for me.
$100 a month for groceries should be enough. What? Wait a minute, that's impossible. If you can't keep it down to $100, we're getting divorced, understand? You can't be serious. So you're not even willing to try, huh? I never thought you are the kind of person who never tried. Such a pathetic woman. I felt a sudden surge of anger when my husband said that. If he's going to mock me like that, then I'll prove him wrong. Fine, then I'll make sure we keep our grocery expenses below $100 a month. My name is Anne, a 29-year-old housewife. My husband John and I have been married for a year. John and I met at a group date and decided to get married after dating for a year. Anne, I want you to stay home and take care of the house once we're married. So I quit my job after getting married and became a full-time housewife. I did like my job, but starting a new life with John was more important to me, so I didn't hesitate to be a housewife. Our life after marriage was sweet and blissful. Every day, I made lunchboxes for John and prepared elaborate dinners. John always said, "Anne, your cooking is really delicious," and his enjoying meals made me very happy. Back then, he had a steady job, and he would always leave work on time and come home early, so the two of us used to have peaceful and happy meals together. But recently, it seems like John's work has become busier, and he's coming home later. He used to be home by 6 p.m., but lately, he often doesn't come home until after 9 p.m. It seems like the increase in work also means he is being counted on more by his superiors and is often invited out for drinks. So every Friday night, he goes out drinking and often doesn't come home until late at night. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't lonely, but John is working hard to improve our life together, so I can't complain. So I decided to make an even greater effort with the lunchboxes, giving John a taste of home. I put so much effort into them. They looked like something you might buy in a department store. So I started making an extra one for myself to eat for lunch, just knowing I was eating the same lunch as John, around the same time during his lunch break, made me feel like we were having a meal together, which was a great comfort. I sincerely hope that my homemade lunchboxes can bring some comfort to my husband, even if it's just a little bit. With that thought in mind, I pour my heart and soul into preparing them. John seemed to notice the changes in the lunches, and after coming home, he would cheerfully say, "Lately, you've been making such extravagant lunches for me. They're all delicious." When he praised me like that, I felt motivated to do even more. Since then, I've continued to work hard on the lunchboxes, making them both tasty and appealing. Before I knew it, cooking was becoming my hobby. I began to take pictures of the lunchboxes and post them on social media, and I was surprised to find that the posts were getting quite a lot of attention. Before, I only had a few followers, mostly friends, but the number of likes and followers started to increase rapidly. This was a first for me, and it was very exciting. I started to see comments from people wanting to know the recipes, so I began to post detailed recipes along with the photos. Sure enough, there were people who tried to imitate and create what I made. I received delightful comments like, "My husband said it was delicious," or "I included it in my child's lunchbox, and they requested it again." And this is a first for me. I was thrilled and was gradually getting into cooking more. It might be even better if prepared in this way. Maybe reducing the amount of this seasoning might bring out the sweetness of the ingredients. As I continued to cook while pondering these things, I found that I had created quite a number of recipes. I hadn't thought I'd pick up a new hobby at this age. My husband John seemed as busy with work as ever, spending less time at home due to overtime and working on weekends. But I didn't feel as lonely as I thought I would, because I used my alone time to study nutrition and even obtained a nutritionist certification. Time flew by, and 2 years of our married life had passed. I started thinking it might be about time to have a child. When I discussed it with my husband, his response was not what I expected. Before we got married, I remember him talking about wanting to have 2 kids, so his reaction was surprising. Maybe he still wants a child, but thinks it's not the right time, or perhaps there has been some change in his mind. Somehow, I felt a bit sad, as if we were not able to communicate properly as a couple. Looking back, I feel that John is less interested in me than he used to be. Our intimate nights have obviously decreased, and even when I try to initiate, I get turned down with excuses like, "I'm tired, sorry." He also stopped giving feedback about the lunchboxes I put so much effort into making. I felt increasingly lonely, wondering if this was the so-called marital doldrums. One day, amidst all of this, my husband made a surprising remark. "Anne, aren't you overdoing it with these elaborate dishes?" "Huh? I'm troubled by you squandering the money I earn." "Don't refer to it as squandering. And I haven't been making extravagant expenditures, you know? I'm simply using regular priced ingredients and figuring out recipes to make tasty meals while keeping costs low." "That's impossible. Those visually appealing and tasty lunchboxes must cost a lot to make." "No, not at all. Just a little ingenuity and preparation can change the flavor quite significantly. Don't lie to me. I know you always take pictures of the lunchboxes you make and post them on social media." "Huh?" I didn't expect my husband to know about my social media, but it seemed like he hadn't looked through every detail. "You're always focusing on making it look good for social media. Stop showing off that you can make these luxurious lunchboxes. It's embarrassing to know that my wife is spending money to get likes. I can't accept my earnings being used to satisfy your need for approval." "Why would you say that? I'm not uploading pictures with that intention at all. Initially, I just wanted to share when I managed to make something delicious. And now I'm more focused on challenging myself to enhance the look and taste of meals with cheap ingredients so others can easily imitate." No matter how much I tried to explain to my husband, he wasn't willing to listen. "No need for excuses. $100 per month is more than enough for food expenses." "What?" I was flabbergasted. It would be incredibly hard to keep food expenses for 2 adults at $100 per month. Since John doesn't cook much, he may not know how much it costs. Groceries are not just the cost of the food ingredients. They also include things like beverages, seasonings, oils, and so many more. Keeping it under $100? Impossible. "Oh, hold on a minute. There's no way I can do that." "Why not? Haven't you been trying to save money by being resourceful with your cooking so far? If so, it should be perfectly feasible. If you can't keep it under $100, we're getting a divorce." "What? Divorce? No way!" I couldn't understand why my husband John would say such a cruel thing. He used to be so kind. Why did he change? It's unfair to suddenly bring up divorce. If you have any complaints, speak up. Don't make impossible demands. I tried my best to initiate a discussion, but John wouldn't listen. "So, you're not even going to try because you think it's impossible from the start? I never thought you were so pitiful. I guess you're just cooking to satisfy your own need for approval." I was furious when John said that to me. If he's going to look down on me like that, I'll show him. Fine, I'll keep it under $100 for the month. No complaints then, right? "Yeah, make sure it stays under $100. I was being stubborn. I didn't care that John had changed. I decided to focus all my energy on succeeding in this mission of keeping the groceries under $100 for a month. From then on, I started to make various changes to my cooking. I thought about various ingredients that could substitute for meat, and tried using tofu and fish cake. I also experimented with combinations of seasonings to create different flavors, like mixing bean paste and dried bonito into egg liquid to make an egg saboro that tasted like spicy cod roe. By doing so, I was able to significantly reduce the cost of groceries. In addition, I visited various supermarkets and searched online to find stores that sell pasta and drinks for cheap prices, and worked hard to save money. It was close, but I managed to keep the grocery bill under $100. I gave a mental fist pump saying, "Take that, John." However, John didn't ask about the results or anything. He just went on with his life as usual. I was disappointed that he didn't seem interested in something he had proposed. But I didn't know when he might bring up the issue of groceries again, so I decided to continue with the $100 grocery lifestyle. In order to make it as enjoyable as possible, I started a new project on social media, regularly posting about our life on a $100 grocery budget. As before, I posted recipes so that everyone could replicate my budget-friendly meals. I saw a comment about wanting to see a video summary, so I started uploading weekly videos on a video sharing site that neatly summarized what I was doing. To my surprise, I got a lot of feedback, and the number of subscribers on the video sharing site increased rapidly, enabling me to monetize it in no time. I was amazed at how the world has changed. The more people watched, the more motivated I became, and I kept coming up with new recipes. In the midst of everything, my husband John told me he would be going on a 3-day business trip the week after next. With that news, I figured there would be no need for me to cook, so I planned to return to my hometown. My hometown is quite a distance away, so I would need to take a plane. So I quickly reserved my plane tickets. Then, before I knew it, the day had arrived, and John left the house in the morning with his carry-on suitcase. He planned to drop by the office before heading to the airport. A little while after John left, I packed my bags and also headed to the airport. Since I was only going home, I packed light enough to fit everything into a backpack. Since I packed light, I was able to leave the house quickly and without any hassle. Upon arriving at the airport, I found a casual cafe where I sat back and enjoyed a cup of coffee while responding to comments on my videos and social media posts. Then, I heard it. I could hear John's voice somewhere. Even in crowded places, his voice is familiar, so I instantly recognized it was him. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw John walking in front of the cafe. Just as I was about to call out to him, I noticed a woman walking beside him. What's more, they were walking arm in arm, seeming rather close. I couldn't take my eyes off the pair. That was undoubtedly John. Is he having an affair? Was the whole business trip a lie? I was so shocked by what was happening right before my eyes that I was rooted to the spot for a while. My flight was due, so with a heavy heart, I boarded my plane and went home. My parents warmly welcomed me, but noticed my downcast expression and asked me what was wrong. My parents expressed their anger at John, saying what a jerk he is. That lightened my mood a little. After that, I decided to put John aside and enjoy my time at home. My mom's cooking was delicious, and it reminded me of when I first started living alone and worked hard to recreate her taste in my own cooking. After some much-needed relaxation at home, I returned to our house. Immediately upon my return, I hired a private investigator. I had never been more grateful for my advertising income from my social media. A few weeks later, the investigation results came in. In short, John was having an affair. It seems that his mistress was a junior at his office. Furthermore, after investigating in detail, it appears that their relationship had been ongoing for about 6 months. That timeline coincided with when John started working overtime and on weekends more frequently. Could it be that he was spending too much money on his mistress, and that's why he asked me to save on groceries? Thinking this, everything made sense. An intense rage against John welled up within me, pretending to be frugal when all he wanted was to increase the money he could spend. The audacity. I decided to take some action against John. From the next day, I stopped cooking for him. Huh? Where's my lunch? It's too tough to keep food costs down to $100, so I stopped making it. Here, figure something out with this. Saying that, I handed over $2. Huh? What am I supposed to buy with this? You can buy a convenience store rice ball, right? And maybe a ready-made sandwich or something. With the remaining change, you can get some cheap coffee at the office. Just about making ends meet. Don't joke with me. Can I satisfy my hunger with this poor meal? Even if it's $100 a month, we should be able to use a bit more. Nope, that's still barely scraping by. Spending $2 5 days a week for a month already takes up $40. You'd need to prepare a month's worth of dinners with remaining $60. Well, you could get by if you have instant noodles for dinner every day. Are you kidding me? If I keep having such unhealthy meals, I'll get sick. But if we don't stick to instant noodles around $1.50 each, we can't fit within $100. $1.50 for 30 days is $45. Add that to lunch, and you're already at $85. Then you've got to keep your monthly beverage expenses within $15. Once I explained this far, my husband John finally seemed to understand the difficulty of keeping food expenses within $100. Hold on a sec. So you're saying the lunch and dinners you've been making so far exceeded $100? No, I managed to keep it within $100 through my efforts. Then why don't we just continue that? No way. You and I are strangers now. That's why I'm teaching you how to manage food expenses on $100 without me. What? What do you mean? I thrust divorce papers at my surprised husband. Divorce? Why all of a sudden? It's not sudden. I've been preparing ever since I found out about your affair. Upon hearing this, John turned pale. What affair are you talking about? Pretending not to know won't do any good. I showed him photos proving the affair. I had these investigated and got the evidence. Now there's no escaping it. I'm asking for a divorce and compensation. John was dumbfounded with his mouth open. He probably hadn't expected to get caught. But still, he tried to argue back, perhaps because of his high pride. Sure, I may have had an affair, but won't you be in trouble if we divorce? You were a housewife. How will you get by once you're on your own? Your family is far away. What are you going to do? Wouldn't it be better to forgive your husband's one mistake and continue our married life? I was astounded. What a jerk he was to say such a thing. Sorry, but I have quite an income now. Huh? The social media posts you look down on have led to various work opportunities for me. I also get substantial income from ad revenue for my video posts, and I'm about to release a book of money-saving cooking recipes. Recipe book? You're releasing a book? To tell you the truth, I'm earning a lot more than you are, so I'm not worried about being alone. Really? John thought I was just a housewife and has been looking down on me. He was shocked in various ways when he found out I was earning more than him. He was no longer able to say anything and was looking down. Just fill out the darn divorce papers, will ya? If you put up a fight, I'm game for anything. I said that as I grabbed my bags that I had packed in advance and hightailed it out of the house. Afterward, through a lawyer, I communicated with my husband and the divorce went through without a hitch. I also managed to get alimony from my ex-husband and his mistress. Word spread like wildfire through his office about his affair because one of our mutual acquaintances works there. Folks are giving my ex the cold shoulder for betraying his wife, who packed him a loving, homemade lunch every single day. The mistress couldn't take the pressure and quit her job. My ex is apparently strapped for cash because of the alimony and money he showered on his mistress. He can't quit his job, so he kept working at the same company, dealing with an awkward atmosphere at work. On the flip side, I moved into a lovely place with a state-of-the-art kitchen, and I'm cooking a lot more. My recipe book got published, and sales are through the roof. I plan to keep cooking a bunch of dishes and live a fun-filled life.
It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Recently, every week around this time, I start to get a headache. All thanks to her. The doorbell rings punctually, again, today. I can only watch as my husband happily goes to open the door. I'm home! Just kidding. We're like newlyweds, huh? You're late! Come in! Hey! Tea! You're so unhelpful. My husband, supporting the woman's shoulder, jeers at me. My precious weekend is always consumed by them. My name is Karen, a 24-year-old working housewife. I work in a general position during weekdays. My husband Mike and his childhood friend Lisa are the same age as me, 24. They grew up in the same town and reconnected at a reunion 6 months ago. It's clear from his photo albums that they grew up like siblings. What lingers between them is not romance. I can sense that from their interactions. The issue is, Lisa clearly harbors hostility towards me. The story goes back to their student days. Mike liked Lisa since they were children. However, despite his constant attempts, his feelings never bore fruit, and he met me in college. As we took the same classes and started to interact more, Mike naturally distanced himself from Lisa. Then one day, Lisa came to us with a man by her side. She looked at me smugly before saying this to Mike with upturned eyes. "We're getting married! I'm sorry, Mike, I couldn't reciprocate your feelings." Her insinuation, as if Mike had settled for me because he couldn't have Lisa, rubbed me the wrong way. However, I decided it wouldn't do any good to make a scene, so I kept quiet. Mike, by the way, can be quite clueless. Even then, that hadn't changed, and he cheerfully told Lisa, "Really? Congratulations! Actually, we're planning to get married after graduation too." Lisa, with her mouth agape, was taken aback by Mike, who didn't even show a hint of sadness. In a way, her reaction was justified. A guy who had always been fond of her suddenly started dating another woman as soon as he entered college, not even giving her a second glance. Moreover, when I declared that I was getting married, it didn't affect Mike at all. From Lisa's perspective, she probably wanted to hear words like, "I still love you," or "Please don't get married," from Mike. Even if there's no romantic feelings involved, it still hurts a woman's pride. "Huh? Don't you have anything else to say?" To Lisa's query, Mike responded without any sense of shame. "Huh? Something to say? Right! Karen! She's an incredible cook. I've never tasted anything as good as the meals Karen makes. And she's super kind, and she even helps me with my studies. While Lisa glared at me, her fiancé looked back with a puzzled face. I couldn't stand the atmosphere in the room, so I tried to smooth things over. Congratulations on your marriage. I'm glad you both seem so happy. I'll be going now. After saying this hurriedly, I took Mike and escaped. At that time, I thought I had handled the situation well, but to Lisa, my attitude was nothing but a declaration of victory. Ever since then, Lisa had been giving me petty nuisances. Even 2 years after graduation, every time Lisa came to our house for a visit, she started throwing passive-aggressive remarks. Lisa would only come over on Saturday afternoons when her husband was at work. Of course, Mike never showed any interest in Lisa, but Lisa, on the other hand, would deliberately bring faded love letters from their elementary school days and try to one-up me. Hey, look at this! I found a love letter from Mike when I was cleaning my room! Sometimes she would laugh insincerely, pretending to be apologetic. Mike and I have a bond stronger than being related by blood or even being a couple. Sorry if this bothers you. We actually had a mutual affection for each other once, you know. You tore us apart, though. If I tried to argue with her, she would look down on me like this. But I get asked out a lot, so I was quickly snatched away by another guy. I don't care, but poor Mike, right? Oops. Did I say something wrong? Mike, without reprimanding Lisa's behavior, nostalgically empathized with her, and they would laugh together. It's fine. Karen understands us well. That was his catchphrase. Of course, I had no intention of accepting their relationship. I've protested to Mike many times. But every time, he would deflect my points like this. As a wife, you should be more relaxed. Don't you trust me? It's sad that you feel like that, being a married couple and all. In the end, it always results in a tense atmosphere and the conversation ends. I was starting to wonder if I could continue to believe in Mike. As autumn approached and the holiday season began, Lisa uttered something outrageous. Hey, let's go on a 2-day, 1-night hot spring trip to a popular fall foliage spot. Just the 3 of us. I couldn't believe my ears. A trip together? The 3 of us? But Mike, true to form, was all for it. Sounds fun! I'll make the reservation. As Mike reached for his cell phone, Lisa stopped him. No need! I figured you'd agree, so I already made the reservation. I can't wait! She had taken the initiative to book the trip on a weekend when both Mike and I were off work. Wait a minute, this is all so sudden. I hurriedly tried to stop it. Lisa, does your husband approve? And isn't it inappropriate to go on a trip with Mike, even if he is a childhood friend? In response to my cautioning, Lisa nonchalantly replied, It's okay, if Karen is there too. From her answer, I inferred that her husband was probably not pleased with the idea, and understandably so. Even though I'm around, she visits her male childhood friend's house almost every week, let alone an overnight trip. He probably wouldn't easily approve. That night, I tried to convince Mike to cancel the trip, but I was met with, It's too late now. We'd have to pay a cancellation fee. Nothing will happen. Don't worry, as usual. I was talked into it, and the day of the trip arrived. Sorry for the wait! Let's get going, Karen! Upon spotting us, Lisa rushed over with an elated expression. Strangely, during the trip, Lisa didn't try to overshadow me or make suggestive remarks, even once. On the contrary, she was overly friendly, choosing souvenirs with me, taking photos together. Even my husband seemed happy, not having to deal with my irritations. I was a bit let down, as I had assumed that Lisa would link arms with Mike and behave like a couple during the trip. It seemed like my worries were for naught. In this way, we spent the day in harmony. As we were headed to the pre-booked hot spring inn for 3, Lisa suddenly turned towards me. I'm sorry! It turns out I couldn't book the lodging properly, so Mike and I are in building 1, while you, Karen, ended up in building 2. Lisa apologized with her hands folded, and Mike, looking surprised, opened his mouth. But we're not sharing a room, right? Mike and Lisa? Then, isn't that fine? He easily agreed that it was fine. Aw, Mike, you're getting your hopes up weirdly. Of course we're in separate rooms. Separate rooms. Lisa, who was loudly explaining in an almost high-pitched voice, and Mike, who was laughing without any sense of urgency. The problem wasn't about being in separate rooms, but that they had registered as a pair without explaining anything to us. It ruined the fun mood that had been there until now, and I, Karen, frowned and raised an objection. Hold on a second. Even if you guys are childhood friends, that's just too much. Can't we change the room? Then Lisa shook her head and continued to explain with a dejected face. Due to identity verification, we can't cancel it now. I promise nothing's going on with Mike, so don't worry, okay? To my stunned silence, Mike added fuel to the fire. I've been thinking about this for a while, but can't you stop being jealous of Lisa? Jealous? I'm not. I hate that about you, Karen. It's a hassle for both Lisa and me. At his words, Lisa smirked as if she was victorious. As we passed each other, Lisa whispered in my ear, I'm sorry to leave you all alone. I'm going to have a fun night with Mike, even on your behalf. They left me and strutted off to the inn. I took out my secret weapon hidden in my pocket and took a picture of their backs. I won't forgive them. I'll make them pay. The next morning, at the station where I interacted with them, Lisa was standing in shock with her eyes wide open. Why are you here? Standing in front of her was Lisa's husband. His face was filled with anger, and he was quietly glaring at his wife. Karen told me where you were. Seems like you're having a lot of fun. I stepped forward in front of Lisa's husband, deeply bowed my head. Thank you for coming all this way today. I sincerely apologize for my husband's actions this time. With fake tears, I held a handkerchief to my eyes. Upon seeing this, he urged me to raise my head. No, it's ultimately my responsibility. Lisa, my wife, is the one at fault. I will divorce her. I will definitely pay you for your troubles. Divorce? What on earth are you talking about? Lisa turned pale as her husband, his veins bulging in anger, berated her. I thought it would be okay if we all went on a trip together, including Karen. But it seems I was wrong. I can't continue with you. We're getting a divorce. Hold on a minute. There must be some mistake. Hear me out. As if to interrupt Lisa's words, I chimed in, matching the rhythm. Me too. Through this incident, I have been able to unveil my husband's true nature. I am also filing for divorce. At that moment, my husband opened his mouth wide and looked at us. What? Divorce? We haven't done anything wrong. At his words, Lisa also started to raise her voice in defense. No, that's right. It's just Karen's misunderstanding. We've been separate the entire time. There's nothing going on between him and me. Lisa quickly tried to link arms with her husband. However, he immediately shook it off and slowly took out his cell phone. It's no use trying to hide it. Can you say the same thing in front of these photos and recordings? He played the recording in front of everyone. I'm sorry for leaving you alone, Karen. I'll spend a fun night with Mike, including your part. Haha. What came from the cell phone was unmistakably Lisa's voice. Lisa's voice, which I had secretly recorded when she whispered in my ear. Mike was astounded by the recording and started yelling at Lisa. Lisa, you said this to Karen? I interrupted Mike's yelling and showed a different piece of evidence. Two people walking arm in arm towards a hotel in a town under the twilight. Anyone who saw it wouldn't hesitate to think these two are having an affair. A stitch in time saves 9. From the beginning, I had not trusted Lisa and had preserved evidence in crucial scenes. Anyway, I had set a condition before this trip. That was, if Mike didn't protect me from Lisa, we would definitely get a divorce this time. What they did was not strictly an affair. It may have been mean to collect evidence that hinted at an affair and send it to Lisa's husband. But I, too, have been constantly undermined by Lisa. There must be something during a trip with 3 people. Then I'll have to take measures as well. I thought this was the only chance to have her husband intervene and punish Lisa. Soon, Mike started to make excuses in an agitated manner. Karen, it's a misunderstanding. We were just heading to the inn together. Shut up. How many times do you think I've warned you about Lisa? I recalled how happily he had welcomed Lisa into our home, how he had repeatedly clashed with me for not welcoming her, how he had accepted staying in the same inn as Lisa without objection, and how he had brushed off my feelings as jealousy. As I started to throw all my piled up resentments at Mike, he seemed to have realized that he was in the wrong. Without caring about the surroundings, he prostrated himself on the spot. I'm sorry. I'll stop seeing Lisa. But please, don't divorce me. Surprised by his sudden behavior, I listened to Mike continue. I don't love Lisa or anything like that anymore. She's just a friend. His words seemed to have shocked her. Even if her husband divorced her, she could eventually get together with Mike. Maybe that's what Lisa was thinking. After all, she was a housewife, and also a lady from a slightly good family, so she didn't have any work experience. She probably figured that if she lost her current husband, Mike was the only one left who seemed likely to marry her. That's why she was weighing her husband Mike against her as insurance. I understand what you're saying. At my words, Mike lifted his head and showed a bright expression. But regardless of whether or not you've cheated, I'm going to divorce you. I just can't stand your attitude. It's the worst. But, Karen, that's harsh. Who's the harsh one here? I found myself shouting. Mike, you fell right into Lisa's scheme. You intended to ostracize me from the start and stay with you in the same inn. I would have forgiven you if you had rejected her, but instead, you sided with Lisa. Have you ever considered how I felt being left alone during the trip? I'm sorry, Karen. I'm really sorry. He seemed deeply affected by my stern approach. Mike slumped down, head hanging low. Then, why did it have to turn out this way? Lisa began to cry, sitting on the road. It's a misunderstanding. Mike and I are like siblings. It's all because of Karen's jealousy. Jealousy? Finding her words ridiculous, I glared at Lisa in a provocative way. Who's been behaving in a way that stokes jealousy all this while? The moment Mike was taken from you, you started approaching him. Despite being a married woman, your behavior is low. But you just want to be fawned over by various men. You were upset when Mike's affections, which were once directed towards you, turned towards me. It's because of your behavior that your husband is fed up with you. Reflect on your actions, you trashy woman. Ugh, that's harsh. Crying won't help. After all, I'm a woman. Maybe you should ask your beloved Mike for help. Bye, Mike. See you. I got into Lisa's husband's car and went home, leaving the two behind. I had originally taken the train to the trip. They can go anywhere together for all I care. Lisa's breakdown looked pathetic, but I finally felt relieved. It seems that my personality is not as good as I thought. After returning home, I filled out the divorce papers, placed them on the table, and went back to my parents' house. I ignored all the incoming calls and emails from Mike. It seems that Lisa happily got divorced. I heard that Lisa and Mike were blaming each other for the divorce, and their friendship had collapsed. Since I've cut off all contact, I'm not sure what happened to them. As for me, I switched to working from home, and now I'm working comfortably without anyone bothering me. I'd rather not get married for a while, especially to a man with a childhood female friend.
Hospitalization? You're planning to use that as an excuse to slack off on housework even more? Slack off? I didn't mean to. If you keep shirking your chores, divorce is next. Unfazed, my husband casually spoke these words, not worrying about my upcoming hospital stay. Apparently, he thinks he can intimidate me with the threat of divorce. He believes that if he dangles the possibility of a split, I'll become obedient. What an insult. Just because I'm a housewife doesn't mean I'll let myself be pushed around. I'm definitely going to divorce him. Definitely escape from this hell. I'm Sandy Davis, 28 years old. A year ago, I married Kenny, a colleague from work. We were in different departments, but often interacted, and his advances led to a relationship. After dating smoothly, we finally tied the knot. With our marriage, I resigned from the company and became a full-time housewife. That's because Kenny had said this to me before we got married. Hey Sandy, after we get married, could you become a full-time housewife? Huh? But I don't really hate my current job. My mom was always a stay-at-home mom, and I think it's best for women to protect the home. Thanks to her, my dad could focus on work without stress. Is that so? Are you sure? I mean, I'm not particularly skilled at housework or anything. That's okay. All I want is for you to handle the house without overworking yourself. I'll earn our living out there. Okay, I understand. If you say so, Kenny, I'll try being a housewife. So I quit my job and started a new life as a housewife. Managing unfamiliar chores was challenging, but it was my life with Kenny, whom I loved so much. Plus, I lost my parents a few years ago, and my only family now is my husband. I was determined to cherish this life. However, happiness doesn't last forever. One day, 6 months after our marriage, my husband came home from work in an unusually bad mood. Even when tired, he would usually greet me with "I'm home," but not today. He let out a big sigh and plopped down on the sofa. I cautiously approached him. Kenny, welcome home. You seem tired. Are you okay? Dinner's ready. Would you like to eat? Or maybe you want to take a shower first? Hey, Kenny. Can't you see I'm thinking? Stop bothering me. With wide eyes and a glare in my direction, my husband lashed out. I had never seen him this angry before, and I involuntarily flinched. I'm sorry. Despite my immediate apology, he clicked his tongue loudly enough for me to hear it. In an obnoxious tone, he began to take out his bad mood on me. Must be nice just lazing around the house all day. Wait, Kenny, what are you saying all of a sudden? You're supposedly a housewife, but really you're just lounging around while I'm at work. You're really the worst. Hold on. I'm always doing chores around the house. Shut up. You're nothing but a leech. Yet you have the nerve to talk back to me? He suddenly grabbed a handful of my hair and yanked it upwards. I felt an unspeakable fear at his actions. I quickly raised my voice, "Stop it!" But my plea didn't reach him. For the following hour, I was subjected to a barrage of verbal abuse, called an inept wife and a freeloader. I'm reducing our monthly expenses, you know. As he declared, his treatment of me worsened day by day. Initially, he only reduced our spending money by $100, but now I'm only getting half of what we used to. Our relationship wasn't one between husband and wife anymore. It was more like master and servant. This was only a year into our marriage. You might think it's only been a year, but for me, it was a year of hell. From the day Kenny lost his senses, time seemed to crawl at a painfully slow pace. Every night, I was reprimanded and blamed for every little thing. Even so, the reason I stayed with Kenny as a couple was because I couldn't bring myself to truly dislike him. I kept hoping he would someday return to his old self. One day, something happened. I was cleaning around the house when my cell phone rang. Checking the screen, I saw a name that I hadn't seen in a while. Laurie, a former coworker's. Excited by the unexpected call, I immediately pressed the answer button. Hello, Laurie. Long time no see.
Sandy, it's been a while. Hey, can you chat right now?
Of course.
I'm sorry for being so blunt, but Sandy, are you fighting with your husband?
Arguing? Why do you ask?
I heard through the grapevine. Recently, Kenny has been talking bad about you at work.
What's this about? According to Laurie, my husband looks as if he is very dominant at home lately. She can't do anything without me. She's so helpless when it comes to housework. She would be divorced if she wasn't with me. Apparently, he had been bad-mouthing me to our former colleagues and junior staff in his department. Because I used to work at the same company, everyone in his workplace knows me. My former coworkers, familiar with me, seem to have subtly defended me, but it seems that even this did not sit well with Kenny, and he was giving the cold shoulder to the juniors and colleagues who defended me. Because of this, the trust he had built up was crumbling, and the atmosphere in his department was supposedly quite bad. Upon hearing this, Laurie felt concerned and decided to reach out to me. I was at a loss for words after hearing this series of events. Not only did I feel guilty, but I also felt extremely embarrassed that my husband was causing trouble for his coworkers. I'm sorry, Laurie. It seems like Kenny has been causing trouble.
It's okay. I'm in a different department, but you need to do something about this sooner. Kenny will be isolated at work.
I know, but he won't even listen to me at home.
I see. But it would be better to discuss this before things get out of hand. For your sake, and for Kenny's too.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Laurie. I'll try to talk to him tonight.
Give it a try, and if anything comes up, I'm always here to listen.
After saying thank you and hanging up the phone, I got back to cleaning. I made up my mind to have a serious talk with Kenny once he got home, and so I waited for his return. Several hours later, my husband came home from work as always. He headed straight for the fridge and grabbed a beer. In the past few months, he hadn't even been saying, "I'm home," nor discussing the events of his day. After finishing his meal, he usually starts lecturing me, so before he could take a sip of beer, I brought up the conversation. "Hey, Kenny, have things been going well at work recently?" "Huh? What's with the sudden question? I'm not so incompetent that you need to worry about me." "It's not about work, actually. I heard something today. They said you've been talking behind my back at work." "Talking behind your back? What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb." I rebuked my husband, who tried to play it off. I confronted him, making it clear to my surprised husband. "Hey, what do you want to accomplish? Not just at home, but even at work. You've been bad-mouthing me. What's so fun about creating a negative atmosphere in your department?" "Huh? What are you saying? Do you realize everyone is having a hard time because of you, Kenny? Why can't you see that? If you want to talk bad about me in front of me, then do as you please, but don't cause trouble for your colleagues too." Right after I said that, a sharp sound echoed in the room. I felt a dull pain on my left cheek, slowly spreading. A few seconds later, I realized my husband had slapped me. "Why would you do that?" "Why? It's because you keep back-talking." "Back-talking? I was just worried about you, Kenny." "Shut up! There's no reason for you to be ordering me around. Get it? You can live because of me. If you understand that, just keep quiet and take care of the house." He spat out the harsh words with a strong tone. I was unable to articulate a response. I had plenty to say, but my body wouldn't cooperate due to the fear. Afterwards, my husband started drinking his beer as if nothing had happened. He started laughing while watching TV and ordered me to bring him snacks. In the end, no matter how much I worried about him, no matter what I say to him, it's all pointless. No matter what, I can't seem to get my husband to understand. Since then, the way he treated me worsened day by day. Not only my heart, but also my body was in shreds. Then one day, on my way to the grocery store, I was suddenly overcome with extreme nausea. My vision warped and I was assaulted by such severe dizziness that I couldn't even stand. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a hospital bed. The doctor, upon seeing me awake, kindly explained everything to me. I had collapsed on the street. I was suffering from malnutrition, and the stress had caused me to develop a stomach ulcer. "Miss Davis, right now, both your mind and body are completely exhausted. You're in a severe state of overwork. For now, you should be admitted to the hospital for about a week." "Hospitalization? But I'm a stay-at-home wife, and the household chores." "What are you saying? If you continue like this, you'll wear yourself out." "I understand." But then it was already past 7 p.m. I decided to contact my husband to bring me some change of clothes, so I took out my phone. To my surprise, there were tons of messages that had arrived within the last hour.
"Where are you now? Get back home, now! You're such a money sucker, and now you're slacking off from your chores?"
He must have returned from work to find me gone and gotten furious that cleaning and laundry weren't done. Gathering my courage, I called him. After a few rings, he picked up.
"Where the hell have you been? And what have you been doing?"
he shouted as soon as he picked up the phone. I took a deep breath and slowly explained the situation to him. "That's why the doctor told me that I need to be hospitalized for about a week, so..."
"Hospitalized? So you're planning to use that as an excuse to slack off even more?"
"I'm not slacking off,
You've already slacked off on your chores, so the next thing will be divorce."
What?
"You'd be in trouble if we got divorced, right? You don't have any relatives, do you?" If I leave you, you'll be all alone for sure, won't you?
Even though his wife had been hospitalized, instead of showing me concern, he used the threat of divorce to order me to come home. At that moment, a fury I had never felt before reached its peak. Enough. I've had enough. I will never be happy if I continue to live with this man. Then it's better to. As I gathered my thoughts, my husband caught up in his own power trip, starting to provoke me over the phone.
Hey, are you listening? You'd be in trouble if we divorced, wouldn't you?
Fine.
What did you say?
I said fine. Let's get a divorce.
No. What are you talking about? Do you even understand what divorce means?
Of course I do. But in return, you prepare the divorce papers.
As if you have the guts to divorce me. Just remember this.
In his annoyance, my husband hung up without waiting for a reply. The next phone call came later. The caller was my old boss from the job I used to have. Actually, even after I became a housewife, my old boss had been contacting me on several occasions. You see, I used to enjoy getting certifications, and I had several before I got married. I got some during my student days and some after I started working, and they were all beneficial for my job. Thanks to them, I had a wide range of work responsibilities, and I was trusted by the higher-ups. When I decided to quit my job after getting married, they tried to keep me on many times. This time, having decided to divorce while in hospital, I was also considering returning to work. When I mentioned this to my boss, he immediately agreed to take me back. He even took care of the arrangements for company housing, so it was decided that I would return to work and move into the dormitory next month. I'm ready now. I can get away from my husband at any time. Later, when I returned home from the hospital, I found the completed divorce papers on the desk. I signed them and immediately submitted them to the courthouse. I hurried back home and packed up my essentials. Then, I left the house before my ex-husband returned. A few hours later, while I was taking a breather in a budget hotel, my phone vibrated with a call from Kenny. Reluctantly answering the persistent phone calls, he yelled at me.
Hey, did you get discharged from the hospital today?
Yes, so what? I responded.
What do you mean, so what? You didn't leave the divorce papers, so you went home, did you? Why didn't you wait for me to come back?
You already know the answer. There's no reason to live together in the same house when we're strangers now, is there?
Huh? Strangers? What are you talking about? You threw away the divorce papers, didn't you?
Threw them away?
You got scared when you realized I was serious about the divorce papers and threw them away, right?
It seems like Kenny is convinced that there's no way I could go through with the divorce. As proof, he is convinced that I threw away the divorce papers and speaks as if I have no intention of divorcing at all. Responding to him, who didn't seem to understand the situation, I replied sarcastically, "Listen, you seem to be misunderstanding something, but I never threw away the divorce papers."
Huh? Then where are they?
I've submitted them. To the city hall.
What kind of joke is...
It's not a joke. It's already been accepted, and you and I are now strangers. We'll never have to deal with each other again. At that explanation, he raised his voice.
Don't mess with me.
Whether he couldn't believe what I said or not, he started blaming me again.
You. There's no way you can divorce. You who have no family? No job?
I certainly have no family, but I do have a job now.
Huh? You're a housewife.
That was true until now. I contacted my boss while in the hospital, and they agreed to hire me back.
That's not something you can do so easily.
It's possible. They even told me they want me back.
There's no way.
You probably don't know, but I'm going to resume work and live in the company's dormitory from next month. Then over the phone, Kenny let out a painful voice.
Wait a minute. This must be a joke, right? I wasn't serious about the divorce.
I don't care. I accepted the divorce because it was what you wanted. There's no problem with that, right?
But that's a problem. How am I supposed to live without you?
As soon as he understood it was a divorce, my ex-husband began to cling without learning his lesson. Disgusted by his attitude, I couldn't help but raise my voice. Huh? I don't care about your life. You're an adult. Figure it out on your own. I was your failed wife, right? So you shouldn't have any problems without me.
That's not true. Wait, I apologize. Please forgive me.
Shut up. I don't love you one bit anymore. I will never forget how you treated me like a slave. Don't ever appear in front of me again. Reflect on your actions and live alone for the rest of your life. After hanging up the phone unilaterally, I blocked his number. I made sure we would never have to interact again. That being said, my new job is at his workplace. The news of our divorce spread through the office. Because he badmouthed me at work, he seems to be looked at as getting what he deserves. He started to feel out of place at work and began taking unauthorized absences. As a result, Kenny was fired for misconduct. Thanks to this, all connections with him were completely cut off. He ended up in debt due to the alimony I demanded after the divorce. Losing his job and even incurring debt, I don't know what he's doing or where. The one thing I'm sure of is that he isn't living a wealthy life. His unhappiness is my only consolation after the torment I have suffered. From now on, I will work for myself and live for myself. I will regain the freedom that I lost during our marriage.
I can't believe you've been thinking about me this much. Thanks for forgiving me.
With these words, my husband tightly grasped the hand of his affair partner right in front of me. As I watched the two of them basking in apparent joy, I secretly smirked. Enjoy your fleeting dream together. I can't wait to see their faces twist in shock. My name is Molly, 29 years old. I met Pat at a mixer, and we're now in our 4th year of marriage. Pat works in sales for a typical company, and when he returns home always varies. About 3 years ago, he started coming home in the early morning every Friday. I immediately suspected infidelity. He would always be gazing at his phone when at home, and sometimes a foolish grin would cross his face. He would hastily hide the screen when I walked behind him, and sometimes there was a scent of women's perfume. "What are you looking at? You seem happy," I once asked him, testing the waters.
Nah, the stocks I bought recently are doing well. I'll get a cake after work next time. What do you want?
Such lies can't last for long. What confirmed the affair was a woman's earring that came out of Pat's pocket. When I confronted him, he immediately confessed.
I will never do it again. It was just a momentary lapse of judgment. Please forgive me. Molly, you're the only one I love.
At this point, 3 months had passed since I first began to suspect his infidelity. A momentary lapse for 3 months? I can't believe you even after hearing that. Let's get a divorce, I declared, but Pat clung to my leg. Night after night, he would go on about how much he regretted it, how much he thought about me, eventually shedding tears. Watching him, I sighed and decided to forgive him. I won't let you off next time. I gave him a stern warning, and we set some ground rules. Firstly, he must contact me whenever he's going to be late due to work. After work, he must return home directly, and if he wants to stop by somewhere, he needs my permission. It may seem controlling, but it's to prevent the same mistake from happening again. I set these conditions to alleviate at least some of my anxiety.
If that's what it takes to be forgiven.
Pat agreed without hesitation. I was hoping that with this, Pat would reform, and we could eventually become a loving couple again. After all, he was the person I decided to spend my life with at one point. Although the wounds from his betrayal hadn't fully healed, I held on to hope for the future and decided to continue my relationship with Pat. However, even if he says such apologies, he's still a man who was intimate with another woman behind my back. Thinking about it just filled me with disgust. For a while, I decided to sleep in a separate bedroom from Pat. Half a year has passed since Pat's infidelity was discovered. He was diligently following the agreed conditions, but lately it seems like Pat is taking the agreement lightly. Why didn't you let me know you'd be late? We agreed you would tell me when you'd be late, remember? I questioned him when he arrived home at dawn. Pat let out an exaggerated sigh and retorted,
Do you really expect me to inform you every single time? Sometimes the conversation gets interesting, and before you know it, time has flown. How much control over me do you need? We're a couple. Shouldn't you trust me a bit more?
Honestly, who does he think he is, saying something like that? He was the one who caused all of this. Have you forgotten what you did? You were the one who agreed to these conditions, weren't you? If you can't stick to them, you're breaking the rules, right? If you can't keep your promises, I'll have to reconsider our relationship. Upon hearing this, Pat, who had been looking down on me with such confidence, suddenly looked uneasy.
Reconsider? What do you mean?
I mean considering separation or divorce. After all, while I forgave your cheating, I haven't fully trusted you since. If you betray my trust again, I'll consider separation or divorce. At that, Pat clung to my leg, just like the first time, apologizing.
I'm sorry. I'll keep you informed. I can't live without you, Molly. Please, don't say such things.
If that's what you think, prove it with your actions. I replied coldly and headed to my bedroom. Since then, Pat has been diligent about keeping me informed. While he often comes home late, it seems he has made a good impression on his clients and gets invited to the drinking parties quite often.
I have another drinking party today. We're close to sealing a deal. You go ahead and sleep.
Reading the message from Pat, I let out a sigh. Maybe if he's going to be late, I should take a detour on my way home. I'm curious about some new cosmetics, and it could be a good diversion. It had been a while, but I decided to go to the department store after work. On my way to the department store, I happened to spot Pat. He was walking arm in arm with a woman, looking quite comfortable. That woman, there's no mistaking it, she was the woman Pat cheated on me with. When I confronted him about his affair 6 months ago, I had him delete all her photos. And there she was, standing next to Pat. He had been talking about his clients and contracts so seriously, and yet here he was, cheating again. What was all that effort for? If he likes other women so much, he might as well just go be with them. My emotions were all mixed up, my body shaking uncontrollably. I need evidence. Next thing I knew, I was taking pictures of my husband's infidelity with my smartphone. I lost any desire to shop and decided to go straight home. The next day, Pat came home in the morning as if nothing had happened.
I got carried away talking with clients last night. We were drinking till just now. Listening to their stories is exhausting. I'm gonna take a shower and lie down.
I see. He had been out having a good time till morning. Of course he must be tired. From the bathroom, I could hear his cheerful humming. As I listened, my anger, which had been building up, reached its peak. Thinking he could live as he always had, betraying me twice? I will make this utterly selfish husband understand. A week later, as soon as he got home, Pat approached me.
Hey, are you okay today?
Absolutely not. Don't touch me. When I pushed his hand away from my waist, Pat distorted his face in a split second.
Enough already. Do you have any idea how much I'm holding back?
He hit my cheek with the hand I had just pushed away. Unbelievable. He was not only cheating, but also getting violent. I shouldn't have forgiven him back then. Overwhelmed with regret, I felt tears welling up in my eyes. But now is not the time to cry. In my pocket, a voice recorder that would serve as evidence was running. You're not holding back at all. If you want to do it so badly, why don't you do as much as you want with your mistress? When I shouted like that, Pat's eyes widened in surprise. You think I haven't noticed? I know everything.
What? What are you talking about?
Your favorite Anna should be arriving soon. At the same time, the house's doorbell rang. Pat's face turned pale at the sudden appearance of his mistress. In fact, I had been in contact with Anna during the week. The moment she learned I was Pat's wife, she grimaced as if annoyed, but she immediately smiled when I said, I'm going to divorce him. I thought you would hold on longer, but you're surprisingly easygoing, huh? Let's sit down and talk, the three of us. That's how it happened, and I had told Anna to come here at this time today. As soon as Anna appeared, she said, We can finally be together, and quickly wrapped her arm around Pat's.
Hey!
It's okay, your wife knows already, and we finally agreed, so it's fine.
Everything is set?
That's right. I interrupted the two's conversation. I can't be with you anymore. Anna will be the one to support you from now on. Lucky you. He had a complex look on his face and was alternating his glances between me and Anna as he said,
But, are you sure? But you...
It's not about what's good or not. This is the best way for everyone to be happy. Pat seemed to be hesitating for a while at my words, but he seemed to have made up his mind as he nodded strongly.
So you were thinking about me all this time. Thank you, Molly. I'll live with Anna. Thank you for understanding.
Whether he misunderstood something, he took Anna's hand and squeezed it strongly. The two of them were so engrossed in their own world, it was as if they had forgotten I was there. Looking at their happy faces, I felt contempt anew. But their smiles would distort soon. Thinking about it, I couldn't help but grin. It's a shame that I won't be able to see what happens to these two from now on. I should have planted a camera. Well, I do have a voice recorder to record their conversations. I handed Pat the divorce papers, made him sign and put a seal on it, and packed up my small items. The movers will come for the rest of the stuff tomorrow, so see ya. With that, I said goodbye to the house I had lived in for 4 years. It was such an anticlimactic ending. 2 weeks later, a call came in. It was Pat. The time had finally come. I picked up the phone with a grin. Hello?
Hello, Molly. A person claiming to be your lawyer just came by. What's going on? You said you were forgiving me, right? I didn't hear anything about alimony.
That's right. Right after divorcing Pat, I had visited a law firm. I took pictures of the affair I had been recording when I called Anna to the house, and of course, the moment Pat laid his hand on me was also recorded. There was plenty of evidence, so I was able to get a notarized statement immediately. Still, I felt uneasy with just a notarized statement, so I asked the lawyer to visit him directly. I already received a report from the lawyer, so I was eagerly waiting for a call from Pat.
I can't afford to pay alimony. This is out of the blue.
I could tell how flustered he was, even over the phone, but I calmly replied, I never said I would forgive you, did I? It's pretty obvious you'd be asked to pay alimony after having an affair, don't you think? Plus, you raised a hand to me.
What? Wait a minute. Yes, I shouldn't have hit you in the heat of the moment, but things were settled between you and Anna, right? Isn't that why you called Anna to the house?
Pat began to talk rapidly. I watched him, ridiculous as he was, and told him with a triumphant tone. I continued, How dare you cheat on me behind my back and still think you can walk away unscathed? Do you think things are settled between Anna and me? What gave you that impression? How about you stop conveniently interpreting things in your favor?
Let's talk about this, Molly.
I forgave you once for your infidelity, but there won't be a second time. I was certain that even he, in his foolishness, would understand the gravity of the situation now. But contrary to my expectations, Pat exploded.
You've got to be kidding me. If I knew it would come to this, I would never have chosen Anna. You deceived me.
How many times does this man need to disappoint me before he's satisfied? As I stood in disbelief, unable to respond, I heard Anna's voice coming from the other end of the phone. What do you mean by that? Didn't you want to be with me? You told me I can't be with you because my wife won't divorce me. You deceived me too. Apparently, things were getting heated on the other end of the line. It's a shame I couldn't witness it in person. I don't have the money to pay compensation. You should pay it.
I don't have that kind of money either. Pay your own share.
You're the reason we're in this mess. You should apologize.
No, you should apologize.
Their argument continued like this until Pat finally shouted at Anna.
Just shut up. Right now, I'm talking to Molly.
Then, lowering his voice, Pat made an unbelievable proposal.
I'll break up with Anna. Let's start over, Molly. I realized it's you whom I truly love. I can't live without you, Molly. I made a mistake. Please forgive me. Let's start over.
The nerve of him to say something so self-serving. I can't believe I wasted 6 months of my life showing leniency to such a fool. With all the volume I could muster, I yelled at Pat. Listen here, if your apology solved everything, we wouldn't need lawyers. Start over with you? The very thought makes me want to vomit. Whether you break up with her or not is irrelevant to me. I don't have the slightest intention of getting back together with you. And I absolutely will not cancel the compensation claim. Don't you dare contact me ever again.
Wait, please. Molly. Molly.
He kept calling out my name, but I simply hung up the phone. Several calls came in from him after that, but I ignored them all. Meanwhile, I found out the compensation of $35,000 and $15,000, a total of $50,000, had been deposited into my account. According to my lawyer, Pat and Anna got into serious trouble and even ended up involving the police. They both insisted that they were the victims and were only telling lies to protect themselves, leaving the police at a loss. In the end, they paid me the compensation, but it seems they're both trying to get the money back from each other, even going as far as filing lawsuits against one another. A man who cheats on his wife without a second thought, and a woman who willingly gets involved with a married man. A fitting end indeed. As for me, I took this opportunity to quit my job and move to a quieter place in the Vermont countryside, which I had been eyeing for a while. I think I'll take it easy, away from the hustle and bustle of the city for a while.